Our little pre-party game to make fun of him for a friend's wedding, until he got fed up and did this.
I never imagined that my first time on Reddit would be to seek advice on my broken marriage and what to do with my vengeful husband. My desire to have risky fun and mock my marriage has left me in the worst possible situation. My AP and I made a huge scene of mocking my husband at our friend's pre-wedding party, and in return, my husband acted out of spite and ruined my image in front of over 150 people. I do not think I can ever recover from what that man has done to me. But do you know what might be worse? What my AP and I did to him? It was not planned by my AP, but it was definitely embarrassing, and my husband didn't take it lightly at all. Please, I do not want to be told that I had this coming. Since when did a little bit of fun have to be so consequential? Just like my username displays, I wish to be called Miley. I'm 30 years old and I have been married for just 3 years. My husband, however, is 2 years younger than me. He is an entrepreneur and I am a baker. The age difference between Darian, my husband, and I is the main reason I married him, to be honest. I wanted to marry a man I could control and wrap under my finger because I didn't want to be controlled. I met Darian from our friend group years ago. We were just friends before it casually turned into a relationship that led to marriage. I had eyes for someone else in the group, but I didn't date him because I felt like he was too controlling and irrational. Apart from his behavior, my friends never liked him. Of course, even in the friend group, we had cliques, and my clique wasn't his biggest fan. I thought it was just jealousy at first because, to be honest, he's kind of living fine, but I then discovered that there might be more to it. His name is Fred, by the way. And even though a lot of the men were threatened by him, they couldn't say otherwise because he literally paid for all our trips. But after my marriage to Darian, my crush for Fred didn't go away. Of course, I felt nothing for him during the early weeks of my marriage because I was still stuck on the honeymoon vibes. That is until 1 year after my marriage when we met again. Darian and I decided to see our friends after a long time, and we went to a club to see them. Fred and I always flirted with each other before, and it almost became a problem when I started dating Darian, but I made him understand that there was nothing between Fred and I. Darian believed me after he noticed the distance I gave Fred, and that's how that scandal didn't live to see the light of day. But when I met Fred at the club, I knew there was going to be trouble in my marriage. Don't get me wrong, marriage with Darian isn't bad. The only problem is that no matter how okay our marriage was, I kept thinking about Fred whenever I saw him. I wrote it off as a normal crush at first, but with time I began to understand that it was starting to be lust. Darian has always been a reserved, hardworking, and normal guy. He's what girls would describe as a safe option, and that's why I went for him. He's respectful and reasonable and doesn't disrespect me. I chose him because I thought I could live easily with him. But then I discovered that even with my marriage to Darian, I couldn't stop thinking about Fred, and that's where the problem began. Now Fred is my biggest nightmare, and I am more scared of him and the thought of ever having anything to do with him. Back then, it was even harder to keep my feelings a secret considering the fact that we were all in the same friend group. Fred, on the other hand, didn't care that I was married and needed boundaries. He kept stealing glances at me and flirting once in a while. Well, in his defense, I didn't do anything to stop him from flirting. Instead, all I did was encourage him and give him green lights. At first, I thought that it was just harmlessly fun, but I had no idea that the risky, flirtatious gestures were getting noticed by a lot of people. I had no idea that with each boundary I crossed with Fred, my marriage suffered a painful blow. I managed to keep things platonic until our second wedding anniversary, where I discovered that Darian had been harboring a lot of questions. He was very confrontational that day when he asked me if I was aware that people were whispering behind our backs. Of course, I already knew that, so I tried to gaslight him and make it seem as though he was exaggerating. But I didn't get the reaction I expected out of him. He didn't find my actions funny at all. Instead, Darian made it clear that he would not tolerate any form of cheating or disrespect. I will not lie, guys. I was deeply shocked. I had never been on the receiving end of Darian's anger until that day. I never expected the level of rage he showed. When I saw how he reacted, I knew that it was a sign to take a step back and not play with him. Even though I was already smitten with lust for Fred at that stage, I knew that I would choose my marriage over him. The truth is that no matter how much one wants to cheat, your rational mind still tries to save you. I knew that Fred wasn't ready to commit and that risking my marriage for him would just be stupid. But that didn't stop me from flirting with him. It just made me smarter at it. I didn't want to stop, but I also didn't want to be caught. The truth is that there was nothing missing in my marriage except from the lust and risk that flirting with Fred gave. Darian has never been a bad husband. To be honest, I think his only fault is the fact that he is too kind. I did play with his trust, and I will not lie about that. That is why I didn't expect him to suddenly turn on me and deal with me so mercilessly. Now please don't get this mixed up. I never actually slept with Fred until 6 months ago. We did flirt once in a while, but it never really got to that intimate part until one particular night. To be honest, I thought I was so smart and discreet with my movements. That's why I delayed the intimate part for so long. I wanted it to happen so naturally that we weren't socially awkward after it and it didn't raise suspicious. I also wanted to make sure that Fred was worth it. Believe me or not, I did care. Even though I had been filled with lust, I still had a working head that questioned what I was doing. Eventually, Fred and I finally slept together for the first time. I didn't expect it to have any effect on my marriage, but it did. Darian definitely suspected something wasn't right. I don't know if it was the way I acted with him or if it was the way I was being discreet. I could tell that he had his suspicions, but the thing is that he never confronted me about it. One thing about Darian is that he likes to be sure before he acts. And Jay think that's what went down in our marriage. I noticed that he withdrew a lot and stopped being a gentleman precisely. There was just this weird aura and weird behavior he gave off. He stopped getting me gifts and stopped putting in effort in our date nights and couple conversations. In fact, let me out it simply that he stopped caring. It was almost like I was the one who started chasing him in the relationship and not the other way around. We were living in the same house, but there wasn't that spark to it. If you're wondering why I cared, then you just be joking. When I decided to cheat, I didn't cheat because I wanted to end my marriage. I just cheated because I needed the fun and risky feeling. Fred was just a phase for me, a few minutes pleasure whenever we met. I still wanted to feel married and happy, so when I didn't have that, I panicked. I panicked and decided to speak to Darian about it. I asked him if there was a problem, and I did it so confidently that I didn't expect the turnaround of events. I went to him thinking I would come out of the conversation as the winner, but instead Darian shocked me. I'm fact, GE threatened me. He told me that he had been hearing a lot of side talks about me, but was taking his time to find the truth. He then proceeded to warn me not to dare cross him or try to play smart with him. I was so scared that I ran to Fred the next day to tell him everything. I expected Fred to just casually tell me not to worry, and that he would be by my side if I eventually ended my marriage with Darian. But all he said was that there was no need to be scared, and that Darian was just being immature. Fred made me believe that there was no need to take Darian seriously. Now that I think about it, the joke was on Fred because I think both of us now know what Darian is capable of. I also think that I was the biggest fool for underestimating my husband. I guess I kept referencing to our 2 years ago GSP, and that made me feel superior in some way. I completely forgot that a man will always be a man even if you were born 2 years earlier than him. Darian always suspected something was up and he knew I wasn't to be trusted. And so instead of sitting back and doing nothing, he waited for the right time to mess me up. He did, and I'll just say this simply. He messed me up real bad. So you might want to ask, what are you even talking about? How did he mess you up? Well, it all started from our friend's pre-wedding party. Just 3 weeks ago, we got a wedding invite from a very good friend of ours. It was arranged to be a 5-day experience with various events lined up until the main wedding. Just like I said, the invite came from a very good friend of ours, so there was no way we were going to say no. Of course, we were busy with work and we're still trying to have a normal marriage, but we squeezed in time somewhere in between. From the get-go, I knew it was going to be a very bad idea. Destination wedding in New York? What could go wrong? A lot of things. I just knew that it wouldn't end well, especially because Fred would be in attendance. We were all in the same friend group, so there was no party without either one of us. There were signs of how dreadful things could become, but I was too stupid to notice it or even take a smart step. Can you believe that a night before we traveled, Darian sat me down and warned me against any form of disrespect? I got upset and asked him what he was insinuating, and he simply told me this: "Do not dare try to make a fool of me in front of anyone, or else you will regret marrying me." I got very offended, but I refused to be dramatic. I just played along because at that point, I was in need of the vacation, and I felt like I would burst of boredom if I didn't go for the wedding. Of course, Darian was paying for the trip, so the last thing in my list was to disrespect him. When we got to New York and checked into the hotel, I sneaked out one night to tell Fred about Darian's threat. It wasn't something I planned for. I was just so bored that it slipped out. I didn't expect Fred to do anything. It was just something I put out there for no reason. But obviously my delusion and lack of awareness for my environment was what made me so out of touch with reality. I mean, what was I even expecting? That's what I think about now that I look back at everything. It is common knowledge that men have huge egos and do not like to be seen as small or incapable. What they hate more is being belittled by another man. I had no idea that Fred's huge ego would lead him to making a fool out of the both of us. He didn't show that he wanted to embarrass Darian, but I could tell that he didn't like the fact that Darian's words had an impact on me. I mean, common. Of course I feared Darian a little, but that happened to be something Fred hated. He didn't like that I took Darian seriously, so he decided to make a fool out of Darian instead. You might also want to ask, how did he do that? Well, he did that by using me, of course, and I fell into the trap like a common rat. Out of the 5 days of wedding events, there was a pre-wedding party that was organized on the third day. Darian and I had attended the first 2 days' events together, and there was no drama. That's mostly because I earned Fred not TK try anything funny. But on the day of the pre-wedding party, Fred asked me to come see him at the restroom. It was risky, but I sneaked into the restroom to see him. He told me he missed me and asked me to dance with him that night. I already had a few drinks by then, so I was tipsy and excited. I agreed to dance with him and did just that. Not in a million years did I think that Fred had any ulterior motive behind that dance request. But he did. He had attached something to my collar while we were making out in the restroom, but I paid no attention to it. When I asked, he said it was nothing. Like I said, I was tipsy, so I didn't care. I danced with Fred and didn't bother looking for Darian. I didn't even bother checking to see if he was watching. The dance started off innocent, but then Darian started touching too much, and then he was basically groping me. I didn't do anything to stop him. I had no idea that we had gathered a crowd and that all eyes were on us, including Darian. But out of nowhere, Fred started talking about Darian. He called him weak and dramatic and insinuated that he wasn't man enough. I foolishly agreed and dissed Darian. Well, that was until I discovered that something was off. A few seconds into the conversation, I noticed that the music stopped. Most people stopped dancing and I could hear my voice. No, I know it's not weird to hear one's voice, but I heard mine too loudly. It took me a minute, if just standing there blankly like a fool, to realize that our conversation was heard by everyone in the room. How? Well, that's Fred had attached a mic to both of us. I was still tipsy, but I knew something was off. I decided to touch my neck and take it off, but it was too late. The damage had already been done. Before I could blink, I felt water all over my body. I fell on the floor due to the shock. While I was trying to understand what was going on, I realized that Darian and Fred were practically punching each other. I screamed because that was all I could do at that moment. No one cared about my state of distress or even offered to pull me off the floor. No one in our friend group even tried to help me. I could understand that the couple were upset that we were causing a scene, but what of the rest? It was extremely embarrassing. I got to my feet and tried to tell them to stop, but instead they pushed me on the floor. Finally, I got fed up and tried to leave, but that's when the drama came. I got the shock of my life when police officers walked into the hall and walked right towards us. By that time, Darian had stepped away from Fred and acted like the both of them weren't just involved in a tussle. I can still remember the words clear. "You are under arrest." I swear I laughed, because of course I couldn't believe it. Fred was the rational one who asked why, because the officers faced both of us. Nothing in the world prepared me for this statement. Possession of drugs. Yes, I know you had to read that again. I also had to do a double take. I do not take drugs, hell, I've only had 2 smokes in my life and I hated it. So to be in a new state and be told that I was under arrest for the possession of drugs was bluff. But no kidding, it was true. I was actually handcuffed along with Fred. I kept screaming and asking what was going on, but no one answered. Believe me, guys, it was the worst day of my life. I was deeply embarrassed and ashamed of myself. Not only was I standing there in a soaked dress, ruined makeup, and bruised hand from falling and hanging to witness people give me dirty looks, I was handcuffed in front of 150 people. In that situation, my survival instincts made me beg Darian for help. I shamelessly kept on uttering words like, "Darian, help. You know I do not use drugs, Jay didn't even smoke, help me." But all I said went on deaf ears and Darian acted like he didn't even know me. I wasn't even given time to change into something better. I was just dragged away like a criminal. Of course, the rules were Hatcher. We were in a foreign state with nobody to help. For me, my husband would have been the best person to help. But how could he help me when I made a fool out of him in front of too many people? Well, after we fit to the station, more tea was spilled. Can you believe that the person who called the cops, or rather, the person who gave the cops hint, was Darian? Yes, he was the one who caused the drama. That was his own revenge, and dare I say that he got me badly. The whole event made me realize that I didn't actually know who Fred was. I knew he smoked and all, but I didn't know he used drugs. Okay, I won't lie. I'd noticed some odd behavior, but I brushed rational thoughts away and found those bad vibes addictive and bad boyish. I liked the risky vibe, but it landed me in deep trouble. Fred got a lawyer to defend us, and it was through that lawyer that we finally got some reasonable explanation as to why we got arrested. First of all, at that moment, I was extremely angry at Fred. I am still livid, but I had to pretend to be okay. I didn't have money to call a lawyer, he did, so I just had to play along. It took me by surprise when I discovered that Fred had purchased drugs from someone in New York when he came, and Darian had used that as an opportunity to bring him down. Can you believe that almost everyone was aware that Fred was a drug user except me? Or maybe I was just too smitten by him to notice. It finally made sense, and I understood why most of my friends warned me to stay away from him even before I got married. The source of his wealth and extravagant spending never made sense, but it finally did. So Darian was aware too, but he refused to tell me because he wanted to teach me a lesson. He used this information to keep an eye on Fred, and finally, he got Fred badly. If you're wondering why I got arrested, they claimed that I was suspected to have purchased it with him, but honestly, I know that's Darian's doing. I was eventually released, and I literally ran away. I took the next flight back home. Fred, on the other hand, was charged to court, but his lawyer later settled and he had to pay a huge fine. I clicked his number immediately because there was no way I wanted to have anything to do with an addict. But I came back home to chaos because my belongings were waiting for me in the garage. I tried to speak with Darian, but he refused to listen. Can you believe that? Darian acted rashly, if you ask me. What could have possibly made him go that far? He could have just warned me about Fred's addiction. Why did he have to put me through hell? As if the humiliation was not enough, he sent me out of the house knowing fully well that I had nowhere to do. Our friend group was still in New York for the after-wedding activities, and they were all so angry that no one even picked my call because of the scene I caused. Like I was the only one who caused drama. I need help on what to do because I'm sure Darian's next step is divorce, and that would completely break me beyond repair. Update. 4 months later, and I'm here with an update. No advice was able to save my marriage. But to be fair, you all only lashed out. No one actually tried to help me. Anyway, I was served divorce papers and I signed them because I didn't want any more embarrassment. I actually became a meme on our WhatsApp group chat because people recorded me on the floor. The whole incident made me know why true friends. Of course, I exited the group and ran back to my parents. They hate me right now, but they can't kick me out either. A part of me tried to settle with Fred, but my parents talked sense into me. Number one, he set me up with that Mike thing. He ruined my marriage and caused all this. Number two, I don't know if he's even a sane person. What if he decides to hit me one day and blakes it on substance? And then number three, he's never shown interest in commitment. So I guess I did end up risking my marriage for a few minutes of pleasure and useless fun. Darian never forgave me for making fun of him, and his revenge still haunts me till this day. I never thought I would get caught, but what's even worse is that I never thought the weight of my actions would crush me this hard. Hi Reddit, I'm literally sobbing while I write this. Being isolated after doing something wrong can lead to a bad case of depression. My family doesn't want to see me anymore because I had an affair with my sister's boyfriend. I know that sounds very bad, and to be honest, I feel like shit right now. I also feel like a slut who could not control her feelings for a guy she liked. But there's always two sides to a story, and I hope I can tell my own side on Reddit. Even after several attempts, my family would rather isolate me than actually give me a listening ear. My sister won't even talk to me. I know she's mad, but I think I deserve a listening ear at least. The worst part is that she was ready to hear from her boyfriend and listen to his explanation. Why am I the one being isolated? My name is Felicia, and I'm a 23 years old college student. I come from a family of 6, and I have 3 siblings, 2 brothers and a sister. My brothers are now living on their own, and it's just me and my sister who live with our parents. My sister Gloria is 1 year older than me, and she's also a college student, but she's in her final year of college. My relationship with my sister has always been good. We fight like sisters do, but we always have each other's backs. Before we got into college, we used to talk about everything and had no secrets. But my sister got into college first, and I was still in my final year of high school. I don't know how to explain that feeling of sudden distance that came between us. We were no longer as close as we used to be. She found it hard to tell me things she usually had no problem telling me before. As time went on, there was a strain in our relationship. She felt like we were no longer kids, and she was now a college student, so she could not be seen with me all the time. That really broke my heart because my sister has always been like my best friend. I never saw the reason why college had to be the reason we were no longer close. But I let it go and decided to give her some space. 1 year later, I got into college too. When I got into college, I really expected my sister and I to get back to being close, but that was not the case. There was still a strain in our relationship. I'm not saying my sister was mean to me or she ignored me. I'm just saying that our relationship was almost cordial and we never really checked up on each other. This was a big problem for me because I was new in college and always looked forward to having my sister show me around and teach me all the ways of college. As time went on, I decided to stop being dependent on her. I stopped trying to get Gloria to hang out with me. I made my own friends and finally found my confidence in college. It was a nice arrangement for me because I no longer had to feel like I was inserting myself in my sister's life. I didn't really know much about her directly. I heard most of it from other people. I got to know that she started dating and went to parties quite often. I was really happy for her, but it broke my heart that we could not have a sister talk about boys anymore. In the past, Gloria and I would sit on our beds and talk about our future boyfriends and what they might be like. We even made promises to tell each other when we finally got someone we liked. So that's why I was somewhat upset that she did not keep her promise. My friends noticed how I felt and they assured me that it was normal for sisters to grow apart. They told me I did not need to overeat and I should just let it go. I think it's always easier said than done. It takes time, but eventually you forget about things. The same thing happened to me. In my second year of college, I started dating. That was not my first time dating because I already had 1 or 2 boyfriends in high school. It was just my first time actually dating legally and without a need to hide him from anybody. In the past, my parents would chase high school boyfriends out of the house with a bucket of water. That made dating quite annoying for me, so I promised myself to only date when I'm in college and at the right age. My first boyfriend in college was a loser. I regret dating that fool even till this day. All he wanted to do was force me into getting intimate with him. Even my parents noticed that he was just a bad influence, and they talked me out of dating him. Yes, that had to be my first mini heartbreak. I actually liked him back then, but I did not like his perverted behavior. So even when we stopped dating, I still felt bad about it because I liked him. My fellow Redditors, I'm sure you all can agree with me that some girls just have the worst taste in men. I'm actually one of those girls, and it's something I promised myself to work on. It's almost like I keep attracting only the bad men. After my first failed college relationship, I honestly expected my sister to check up on me. I mean, we live in the same house. Our college is just a 1-hour bus drive from our house, so our parents insisted that we not stay on campus. Even my brothers called to check up on me after my parents told them about the pervert I broke up with. My brothers literally live in another city. So, when my own sister and closest sibling who lived in the same house with me didn't even try to ask me how I was feeling, I was really upset. I know some of you would like to tell me, how hard is it for you to just move on and forget about your sister? It's not that easy to get used to being ignored by someone you've shared your whole life with. I'm a very confrontational person, so after my sister ignored me, I decided to let her know how angry I was. I walked up to her one day and asked her why she did not even care to check up on me. It was in college and she had just finished having a class by then. We were standing outside of her class and her friends were waiting for her in the class. I did not know the reaction I expected when I confronted my sister, but I definitely did not expect her to shrug nonchalantly and tell me to grow up. Well, does growing up mean I must be distant from my own sister? What she said to me that day was literally the straw that broke the camel's back. I listened to her and decided to grow up. I was so angry that day that I promised myself never to talk to her about anything. I even took down our pictures from the wall of my room. I know, I'm childish. I accept it wholeheartedly. Even my own friends told me I overreacted, but I did not care. Everyone deals with things their own way, and that was just my own way of telling my sister to fuck off. Now, I'm sure my fellow Redditors are wondering if I went and dated my sister's boyfriend just to spite her after what she said. Well, you're wrong if you think that's what happened. I'm not a psycho, and I will never date her boyfriend just to spite her. That's not what happened. If that was the case, I would not write this Reddit post, because even I would blame myself for what happened. I'm not saying I don't blame myself now, I'm just saying the situation is a little different from what you all think. Everything started from a particular party that my sister's friend threw at her house. One thing about college is that parties are constant, and if you have crazy friends who are die-hard party animals, The tendency of you finding yourself in a party is very strong. My friends live partying, and it's really surprising because they actually have very good grades and they are very intelligent. I'm not trying to say I hate parties, I just hate attending parties that I'm not directly invited to. My friends are invited to almost all the college parties, and they like to invite me by extension. They call it the invitation by an invitee. I never really got the concept of that kind of invitation, but I always gave in eventually. This particular party was actually thrown by my sister's very close friend, and I only got to know that when I attended the party. To be honest, I wanted to leave the moment I realized who was throwing the party. I did not want my sister to feel like I only came to the party because she was there. If you're wondering why I would think like that, my sister has said many such things before. Sometimes she accuses me of trying to be in the same friend group as her. I ignored her claims most of the time because I'm not really trying to be the most social sister, and I'm not trying to become a popular college student. I'm just an extrovert that likes good parties, and that's it. I never really saw why my sister felt like I was constantly trying to be in a competition with her. My fellow Redditors, all these claims are false. She brings these things up every chance she gets. I've always just loved spending time with my sister and talking to her. I grew up with this person and we were pretty close. Of course, I'll get attached and find it weird to see us keeping a distance. We grew up with two boys who were already in college while we were just starting out high school. The age gap between us is quite big, and boys have their own ways of bonding with their sisters. Our brothers are as boyish as they come. They hate high school movies and feminine interests. With that kind of environment, Gloria and I had a lot in common, so we naturally bonded. So it surprised me when my sister felt like I wanted to be in a competition with her just because I wanted to spend time with her. Even when I stopped trying after the grow-up comment she made, she'll make a fuss when we met up at the same spot with our friends. So you can understand my desperation to get out of the party the moment I realized my sister's friend was the one who threw the party. I tried to leave, but my friends encouraged me to stay. They told me I was just overreacting and that it was just a party. If 3 of your friends are trying to convince you to do something in a party room filled with people and loud music, I don't think you can resist that temptation. I gave in and decided to just stay and have fun. Even though I decided to stay, I tried my best to make sure I did not encounter my sister. It's not like I was trying to ignore her because I was scared. It's just that I did not want her to have more reasons to back up her made-up claims. While at the party, I met a group of guys that I found to be really cool. They were sitting at the edge of the party and they seemed to be playing games on their phone. I love video games a lot and I love playing them all the time. I learned how to play video games from my brothers because they are also addicted to video games. So when I saw that group of guys playing video games, I was intrigued. My fellow Redditors, I was at a party and I was trying to avoid my sister. If I saw a bunch of guys playing video games, I'd like to play too. I saw that as a perfect way to escape clashing with Gloria at the party. I did not know those guys, so I did not walk up to them immediately. I found one of my friends and I asked her if she knew who they were. She did not know them either, so we asked another friend. One of my friends said she knew them and had the same class with them. I asked her if she could introduce me to them and she agreed. I did not have any ulterior motive behind doing that. Those guys were literally strangers, and I just wanted to play video games. There were also some girls watching them while they played. I'm not the only one that got intrigued by the guys playing video games. I'm just the only one that was old or stupid enough to ask my friend to introduce me to them. Never in a million years would I have imagined that my sister had a crush on one of those guys. I never even met them before or knew we attended the same college. Out of 3 of my friends, only one person knew who they were. That just shows how insanely clueless I was. My friend dragged me there and introduced me to them. They seemed to know her just like she said, and they were friendly. I asked them if I could play with them, and they didn't mind. So after they finished the game they were still playing, I joined in the fun. I did not know how to play the one they were playing at that time, so they had to teach me the rules. After minutes of trying, I finally got a hang of it. My fellow Redditors, I was just a girl playing a video game. I did not even care to remember their names. I just played with them while we chatted about random stuff. That was literally all I did till the party ended and I left with my friends. I forgot all about that encounter the next day and moved on with my life. I didn't even remember what happened at the party. I was not drunk. I just had 2 drinks while we played video games. When I say I don't remember, I mean it was just a normal night. I took it as just another party, and I did not dwell on it. But I did not expect what happened many weeks later. I was casually walking in the hallway at my college when someone called out to me. When I turned back, I saw one of the guys I'd met at the party while playing video games. I didn't even know his name, and he had to remind me what his name was. He asked me how I was doing, and that's how we started talking. It was just a random conversation that ended barely 5 minutes after it started. I told my friends about it, and they told me it was just a normal conversation and I should stop overthinking it. Yes, I know I overthink a lot. It's one of my bad habits. I like to read into things too much. In all honesty, I did find him attractive. For reference sake, his name is Brandon. I just hope no one I know ever comes across this post. I can only hope, though. So I found Brandon attractive, and that was one of the reasons I kept overthinking things after he casually had a conversation with me in the hallway. We did not encounter each other after that day for over 2 months. I even forgot all about him in our conversation. But I ran into him at a bar one day. Don't worry, guys. I'm already old enough to drink at a bar. I was not really there for drinking, though. My friends neither worked at the bar, and she asked me to escort her so she could see him. Brandon was there with his friends, and they were busy drinking and chatting. I saw him first, but I pretended not to have seen him. I just waited for my friend to finish chatting with her brother so we could go. I decided to wait for her outside since she told me they were going to take a while. It seemed like they were arguing about something, so I did not want to intrude. I sat on a chair outside the bar and scrolled through my phone. I heard some movement behind me, and when I turned around, Brandon was standing there. My fellow Redditors, I was really shocked to see him there. I really thought he did not notice me in the bar and was occupied with chatting with his friends. "What are you doing outside alone?" he asked me before sitting opposite me. I just told him I was waiting for a friend. I was surprised when Brandon asked me why I did not say hi to him in the bar. Apparently, he'd seen me too and felt like I was ignoring him. Yes, Redditors, he really said that. I found the observation weird, and so I told him I had no reason to ignore him. We argued back and forth over the topic, and that's how a conversation erupted from our argument, and we started talking. For me, I was just having a normal conversation with him, and that's what he seemed like. He was still a stranger because I didn't know much about him. Before my friend finally came outside, Brandon asked me for my phone number. I gave it to him, and he gave me his own phone number. I was really excited to get to know him better because I already liked the fact that he loved video games and was quite good at playing them. He was someone I felt like I could connect with on a deeper level. Brandon and I started chatting a lot, and we even met up at bars to play video games. 2 months after exchanging contacts with him, we became really good friends. We did not have any classes together, and he was my senior in college by a year, but we still found time to meet up and play video games. At some point during our friendship, I felt the need to speak to someone about him. Brandon is a really attractive guy, and I had feelings for him. We were just friends who met up anytime we had time, but I still liked him very much. I wanted to speak to someone about it so I could know what to do. I was afraid he just saw me as a friend and nothing else. I also wanted to know if I should make the first move and ask him out. I was very hesitant in making my decisions because I was still heartbroken from my first college relationship. I did not want to rush into anything, then get my heart crushed. I was so desperate that I even went as far as asking people online for advice. Yes, I went on social media platforms anonymously so I could figure out the next step I was meant to take. In one of my social media quests, someone advised me to just go for it and stop being hesitant. Before I go on, I'd like to say social media contributes to one's curiosity sometimes. I went to speak to absolute strangers and felt comfortable asking them for relationship advice. I had no choice because I literally had no one else to ask. I did not want my friends to know I liked Brandon because they are careless talkers and could have ended up revealing everything during a meeting with him. I could not speak to my sister too because we were no longer as close as we used to be. By that time, it was over 2 years since we last spoke to one another and confided in each other. I had no choice but to listen to my online friends who advised me to go for it and let Brandon know how I felt about him. To be honest, I've never felt so shy and nervous to do something like I felt back then. Brandon had a lot of charisma, and you can just tell how confident he is in himself. I was literally scared to tell him how I felt because I was afraid of making a fool out of myself. One day I finally decided to let the cat out of the bag and just let Brandon know how I felt about him. We'd not seen each other for over 4 months before then, and we just communicated on our phones. He asked me to meet him at our usual spot, which was the bar my friend's brother worked at. My fellow Redditors, when I came to the bar that day, I got the shock of my life. Imagine me, a girl who has a crush on a guy, walking into the bar to see him waiting patiently for me. I was feeling giddy and excited, but it ended up being for nothing at all. Before I could even get settled, Brandon asked me for relationship advice. I was so shocked that I could not even say anything for a very long time. I did not like the fact that he was asking me for relationship advice. He did not know I had feelings for him because I'd never told him before, but still. Could he not tell? Well, Brandon couldn't tell I had feelings for him, and that was the reason he could ask me for relationship advice. At that point, I already knew that it was impossible to date him if he had a girlfriend. I decided to let my feelings go and do the most reasonable thing I could think of. I asked him what issues were going on in his relationship, and he told me his girlfriend was mad at him because he did not give her a gift for their 6-month anniversary. To be honest, I felt like that had to be the lamest reason for anyone to be mad at their partner. I even wanted to stand up and leave the bar right there and then. I thought he had serious issues he was dealing with, unknown to me that it was just some stupid argument. I controlled myself and just told him that the best thing he could do was get her a gift, then properly apologize and blah blah blah. I left the bar after giving him the advice he asked for. He was surprised that I did not stay back and play video games with him, but I made up an excuse. I don't know if guys just do it intentionally or they are really as clueless as they claim to be. How can you not tell if a lady likes you? At that point, we had been friends for almost 8 months. We played video games together and chatted almost all day on our phones. How could he have been spending so much time with me when he had a girlfriend? I was really angry, and so I decided to stop contacting him. It was a reflex action, and I mostly did it for my own good. I did not want to keep spending time with a guy who has a girlfriend and also happened to be my crush. None of it was healthy, so I stopped replying to his texts. 2 months went by, and I literally forgot about Brandon and everything about him. Our college exams were around the corner, and I used the opportunity to focus on the upcoming exams. After the college exams, we were on break, so I had a lot of free time. I decided to spend my free time with my friends. I got permission from my parents, and I was allowed to go spend the break at a friend's house. My friends and I mostly partied all through the break. We went to clubs, bars, and even parties we were not invited to. It was our way of shedding off the stress we'd gotten from our exams. I never expected to see Brandon again until one day when I saw him at a party my friend and I attended. I was surprised to see him, but I was not surprised enough to go speak to him. I tried my best to avoid him, but he spotted me with a friend of his towards the end of the party. My fellow Redditors, I was speaking to a random guy who engaged me in a conversation. So when Brandon suddenly appeared and gave the guy a bro hug, I realized that they were Prob's friends. I wanted to excuse them, but Brandon stopped me. He told his friend to give us a minute, and his stupid friend agreed. I don't mean to deviate, but why do guys do that sometimes? You're talking to a girl and your friend just comes out of nowhere and tells you to excuse him. The surprising thing is that most guts do not mind and they will oblige. I was not ready to stand there and have a conversation with Brandon, so I asked him to excuse me so I could go party with my friends. Brandon playfully grabbed my hand and asked me why I was ignoring his messages. I told him I was busy with exams, but he refused to listen to me. He accused me of ghosting him for no reason at all. When I insisted that I was actually busy reading for the exams just like everyone else, he asked me why I did not contact him after the exam. Even after all my attempts to make up excuses, Brandon did not listen to me. He asked me to follow him outside so we could talk without the music disturbing us. I listened to him and followed him outside. My fellow Redditors, Brandon had the audacity to ask me if I ignored him because he had a girlfriend. I did not want to give him the satisfaction of knowing I had a crush on him, so I denied his claims. Even when I met Brandon at the club back then, I still had feelings for him. It's something I cannot deny. My feelings didn't just disappear after ignoring him for months. I asked him how his girlfriend was, and he told me he no longer had a girlfriend. I did not believe him at all, and I was not afraid to let him know I felt he was lying. He told me he was serious and assured me that he was a single man. He said he broke up with his girlfriend because she was overprotective. I will not lie to you guys. I was actually very happy to learn that he broke up with his girlfriend. If you have a crush on a guy and he tells you he's single, you'll definitely see that as hope for a possible relationship. I took his word and the truth and did not doubt his words. I saw no reason for him to lie about it. He did not lie months back when he asked me for relationship advice, so I did not really think he'd have a reason to lie to me at the party. I believed him, but pretended like I did not really care that he was single. I asked him how long he's been single, and he told me it's been up to a month. When I went back home that day, I was really excited. I liked the prospect of Brandon being single again. It meant I could finally make a move and see if we would have a thing together. That same night, Brandon texted me, and that's how we started chatting again. I began to get his texts as usually as I formerly did, and our friendship was back again. We even played video games at the bar like we used to before. I was still at my friend's house, so I had the freedom to go out whenever I wanted. It was also a nice experience because Brandon and I were on break and had the opportunity to meet up freely without school getting in the way. I honestly believe that Brandon liked me because I noticed the way he started flirting with me. It was a gradual process and he started very discreetly, but as time went on, I noticed it. I did not have a problem with him flirting with me, and I even flirted back because I liked him. The first day we shared a kiss was when we were playing a video game together. The kiss just happened in the spur of the moment. I did not expect us to start kissing that fast, and to be honest, we did not stop. We started greeting each other with kisses anytime we met up to do anything. There were even times when we'd spend minutes making out instead of playing video games. I was spending the break with my friend who lived on her own, so one day when she went out, I invited Brandon to her apartment. We spent the whole day talking, playing video games, and making out. Things escalated really fast and we ended up sleeping together that day. After he left, I spent hours thinking about what we had done. It was not my first time and I was not a virgin, but it had been a while since I got intimate with anyone. It was a big deal for me, and I truly felt that us sleeping together was a step in the right direction. I literally acted like a high school girl who was love-struck. For me, what happened meant that Brandy liked me as much as I liked him. Now, I understand that having very limited relationship experiences makes you exaggerate what other people see as normal things. Brandon came over to my friend's place many times after that, and we hooked up a lot. It was even like I was in a full relationship with him, just that we hadn't put a title on it yet. Well, that's what I thought was going on. Never. I'm a million years would I have imagined that the guy I'd been sleeping with and dreaming of was my sister's boyfriend. I mean, Brandon didn't even tell me he had a girlfriend. He told me he was no longer in a relationship and was single. Let me tell you all how I suddenly got the shock of my life when I discovered that I was having an affair with someone's boyfriend, my sister's boyfriend. One day I decided to ask Brandon if he was ready to go official. I was tired of us hooking up and making out when we didn't even address each other as boyfriend and girlfriend yet. To me, I thought he was my boyfriend because we were literally doing everything couples do together. I also thought he felt the same way and would ask me out at his own time. Eventually, I got tired of waiting, so I decided to take matters into my own hands and do the talking. We had already resumed college by then, but I was still at my friend's place. To be honest, the reason I did not want to go back home is because I knew I could not freely invite a guy to the house as frequently as when I was bringing Brandon to my friend's house. My fellow Redditors, I invited Brandon over to my friend's place one day and asked him why he was taking time to make things official. I asked him if we were a thing or I was just his fling. Brandon decided to play the stupid card. The fool sat down on the bed and confidently told me to take a seat. I honestly thought he was about to say something serious, only for him to tell me he was back with his girlfriend. Yes, he told me that. The guy I'd been doing everything with for weeks looked me in the eye and told me he had a girlfriend. I was so angry that I almost scratched his face with my nails. What do you mean by that? I thought you told me you were single? I remember asking him in those exact words. Brandon looked me square in the eye and told me that was then, and that he was already back with his girlfriend. You needed to see the way I just stood there like a fool. To be honest, I actually believed that I am a fool. I was so furious that I threw the pillow at him. Yes, that's my version of violence. There was nothing else I could do. I asked him why he slept with me the day before if he had a girlfriend, and he just told me I was his going. Yes, Brandon told me that I was his fling. He did not wait for me to speak. Even as I ran after him and tried to get him to explain himself, he left the house without looking back. I felt like the world's biggest fool. I was so heartbroken that I decided to call my friends and finally tell them about the experience I had with Brandon. We met up at a cafe and I told them everything. I was literally a crying mess, Reddit. My friends were angry that I didn't tell them what was going on sooner, but they still comforted me and tried to make me feel better. Barely 3 hours after we separated that day, one of my friends called me and gave me the shock of my life. Apparently, she decided to ask around and find out who Brandon was dating. She got to know that his girlfriend was Gloria. Brandon was dating my sister, Gloria. The news made me feel like shit. I was so shocked, disgusted, and scared that I could not even pull myself together. I found out I had been hooking up with my sister's boyfriend. I swear that I had no idea Brandon was dating her. My friends encouraged me to go tell her the truth since it was better for her to find out from me and not someone else. I agreed with their suggestion and went back home. I called my sister to my room and told her everything. My fellow Redditors, my sister slapped me hard on the face and called me a whore and slut. I was so shocked to hear those words from my own sister. I tried to make her listen to me, but she ran off and told our parents I had an affair with her boyfriend just to spite her. My parents did not even give me time to explain. They believed everything she said and told me I let bad friends influence me into dating my own sister's boyfriend. My parents stopped speaking to me or even acknowledging my greetings. Anytime I tried to explain, they'd turn a deaf ear and shut me up. Gloria never kisses a chance to swear at me and call me a slut. She even called my brothers and told them her own fabricated version of the story. I've been trying to make my brothers understand what really happened, but even they are not ready to listen. Everyone feels Gloria's version of the story is believable because I'd been angry with her for keeping her distance from me in college. Brandon and Gloria are still dating. She forgave him and is still dating him. I don't even know the lies he told her for her to still be with him. Even when I try to show our previous text messages to our parents and Gloria, they don't believe it. Gloria even days I edited the messages just to frame him. I'm currently isolated in my house and I had to go back to my friend's place because I was tired of the side comments. No one is ready to listen to me. My brothers send me money for tuition and upkeep, but that's all. They don't even want to pick my calls. I can swear that I had no idea he was dating my sister. I was not living at the house when I was hooking up with him, so I did not know. He just told me he had a girlfriend, and I stopped replying to his texts immediately I knew. When we met again and he said he was single, I never knew he lied. I don't even know if he was aware I was Gloria's sister, and he still went on with it. I feel like shit every day, but I promise that I did not have an affair with Brandon intentionally, while I was aware he dated my sister. Gloria and I stopped telling each other everything, so I had no idea she had a boyfriend whose name was Brandon. Brandon never even came to the house before. They only started dating after the first party where I met Brandon. My friends have tried to convince my family, but no one is listening. Now, I regret keeping everything from my friends, and I regret hooking up with a guy who did not make his intentions known just because I liked him a lot. Brandon is a liar and a cheat, but I'm the one paying for his mistakes. I blame myself for being so careless and stupid. I don't know if my family will finally listen to me one day, but I'm trying to focus on college. Maybe one day, the truth will be out. I'm tired of trying. Thank you all for reading this complicated story of mine. Bye, Reddit.